What's up YouTube, Capital G here, talking about True Draco in this video and asking the question, what is the most fair way to hit this archetype on our next Forbidden and Limited list? And some of you guys right off the bat might be wondering, Cap G, why on earth would you make a Banlist video and only talk about one deck? You're not bringing up Terraforming and Lapis Lazuli and Independent Nightingale, Astrograph Source, or all the other problem cards of the format. It's really that I'm sticking to True Draco in this video because I kind of feel like True Draco is a special circumstance, not because of the deck itself, but I think it's the way that people want True Draco to actually get hit. I think if you actually go around and ask a lot of competitive players, I think really a lot of people just want True Draco to basically be unplayable. I think a lot of people want the deck to kind of be overhit. They're like, yo, ban Masterpiece, go ahead and ban Diagram on top of that, ban True King's Return, ban Majesty's Maiden, and probably ban, I don't know, Drive the Third. Like, I kind of feel like people don't want True Dracos to be competitive in any sense, and I don't really understand why that is. I think if you actually compare True Draco to other decks in the meta, let's just use Pendulums and True Draco as they are the best decks in the meta currently, right? I think if you went around and you went to your locals, you asked competitive players, you said, hey, Konami's going to ban Astrograph Sorcerer, and that's the only hit the Pendulums. I think a lot of people would be like, okay, that's fair. That's perfectly fine. Astrograph Sorcerer is the card that allows Pendulum Magicians and really Pendulum decks in general to just go like completely off the wall with their plays and do a lot of the derps, not a hard once per turn. You can get it easily from Electromites and all that good stuff. I think most people would be completely satisfied with that, but I think that if you said we're just going to ban Masterpiece, I think a lot of people would be like, oh my goodness, Konami, what about Amano Awado? What about Card of Demise? What about all these other cards? Ignis Heat, ban it. I feel like people don't want True Draco to even be competitive from any standpoint. And I don't know, maybe it's like a tribute thing, because I noticed this a long time ago, a couple of years ago, when we had Monarchs, the domain version that was like very popular, right? People really hated that deck, and it's not like Monarchs were extremely absurd, especially when you compare them to other strong decks at the time like Cosmos and Pepe Magicians and whatnot. But people really hated Domain. You guys remember when people were like, Domain needs to be banned and all this stuff? So I don't know if it's maybe just like a tribute mechanic thing. Maybe it's just the fact that some of these decks are it's mainly just big ass monsters. But I kind of want to talk about True Draco in this video and talk about what's actually fair when it comes to hitting this deck. For starters, I am not going to sit here and white knight for, True Draco. I'm not going to be like, oh, True Draco don't deserve to be hit at all. All their cards are perfectly balanced. Like, I'm not an idiot. I mean, to be completely honest, I don't really give a fuck about True Draco. The only competitive deck that I actually care about is Ultra, guys. As long as Konami doesn't hit that until, like, September or something, I'm perfectly fine. I will openly admit, like, Masterpiece, obviously, that card has already earned its spot on the ban list. It was shocking to me that, it escaped completely scot-free previous list, but I think that Masterpiece easily is a card that warrants forbidden status, because you look at the card. It's not just that it can get semi-unkillable a la the towers, but it's the fact that it has disruption during your opponent's turn. You don't even have to technically normal summon it. That's something that really bothers me when you compare it to like other cards like towers. I really just feel like Masterpiece is an overtuned card. It can be unaffected by spells, it can be unaffected by traps and monster effects. In addition to that, you can still just special summon it back from the graveyard with True King's Return if it dies, Monster Reborn, etc, etc. And the fact that it has disruption during your opponent's turn with those great stats, like, this is one of the best monsters we've ever seen. This thing is so much better than Towers. It's actually ridiculous, and Towers got banned. It went straight from 3 to 0, so I kind of understand why, most people would want Masterpiece actually banned. And then another card I think that actually should probably get the axe right about now, because I feel like we've all had our fill of Card of Demise. I know it's not technically a True Draco card. I understand the Alinthio argument of the past, where he's basically saying, it's just a card that helps stun decks keep up with the meta. The problem is it's so easy to incorporate into non-stun decks, and I know that there are obviously the drawbacks of Card of Demise where you got to get rid of your entire hand, but True Draco has no problems doing that. In fact, I think that's one of the most frustrating things about playing against True Draco is the fact that if you give them Card of Demise and then you also give them like Heritage and Disciples, they have so many recovery cards where they can just expend their spells and traps like crazy, and then they can activate these cards in main phase 2 or later during the main phase and they can just recover everything and then set all their cards. Like, they really don't need monsters in their hand, considering they can just search everything from diagram. And the real problem with Card of Demise, and again, this is not just limited to True Draco, just Card of Demise in general, is the fact that it's being exploited in non-stun decks. I mean, we saw in the World Championship last year, Chainburn end up winning the Dragon Duels. He was running Card of Demise, and I don't even think True Draco is really like a full-on stun deck. I mean, when you can normal summon Amato Awado and then you can drop a Masterpiece and have like 5,000 damage off the bat, like, is that really a stun deck? I don't really know if that's a stun deck. I know they play Floodgates and everything, but I feel like True Draco is not, it's not the traditional summon one monster at a time, 1800, try to protect. I'm not sure if it's exactly a traditional stun deck. So those are two cards that I could definitely see straight up being banned. But then when I look at True Draco, I kind of have a hard time feeling anything else is really ban worthy. I think that a lot of people will look at Dragonic Diagram and be like, oh, Cap G, you gotta hit that card, it's too powerful. It makes the True Draco monsters immune to battle one time, it gives them a stat boost, and it basically is a Rhoda every single turn. But I really look at Diagram and I'm just like, isn't this just kind of field spells adjusted to power creep? I mean, we've seen this, guys. You guys know the new age field spells. I call them the Rhoda pool, ABC Union Hanger, Trickstar Light Stage, Spiral Resort, although that card did get limited. I mean, even the new Elemental Saber field spell basically gives you a Rhoda every single turn. It just seems like that's what field spells do now. Like, every single field spell has a Rhoda built into it, and then has some other effect that's really good for your archetype, whether it's locking down back row like the Trickstar Light Stage, or giving you an ABC piece straight from your deck like Union Hanger. I kind of feel like Diagram is in a very similar situation to something like Zodiac Barrage. I think that it's a card that some people will probably say should be banned, but then I feel like if Konami hits other things in True Draco, more unfair cards, I kind of feel like if this card is left unlimited, we probably won't notice. Like, you guys remember when Zodiac got hit, and Konami and the OCG, they hit the broken monsters in the deck, right? They hit Broad Bull, and they hit Drident, and then they also hit Zodiac Barrage, which was the consistency card, the card that let the deck basically start going, and everybody's like, ah, that's a good hit, it's a broken card. But then in the TCG, Konami just hit the monsters, and we have Barrage at 3, and it's not doing anything. Zodiac are still completely unplayable in the TCG. I feel like Diagram is a similar situation. Like, if you take Masterpiece out of the deck, what ridiculously overpowered plays do they really honestly have in True Draco? I feel like Diagram is just a card that they kind of need to even function. I mean, this is a deck that runs such a low monster count, and even if you did play the other True Dracos, what is there left? I mean, Drive number 3, I mean, that card kind of sucks, or Drive the 3rd, whatever it is, you guys know the card I'm talking about. So I think Diagram should actually completely skate, and then this is something that I'm pretty sure is going to get me a lot of thumbs down and dislikes on the video. I actually think Dynamite Knuckle should come back to 1. I think that the trade should essentially be Masterpiece to 0 for Dynamite Knuckle at 1. And the big reason that Dynamite Knuckle, in my opinion, got banned, and the reason that people said it was the best card in the deck, was really True King's Return, right? The last time Dynamite Knuckle was at 3, wasn't True King's Return at 3? Isn't True King's Return basically a Call of the Haunted that can be used during both players' turn, every single turn, that when the card True King's Return is destroyed, you don't even lose the monsters? Like, True King's Return is one of the most absurd revival cards in the game. It probably is, maybe, I don't know, second to like Soul Charge or Monster Reborn, but it's pretty much up there. True King's Return is a ridiculous card, and I feel like Dynamite kind of died for True King's Return sins. And the fact that if your opponent destroys it, you just blow up one of their monsters. I feel like with True King's Return at 1, like, yeah, you have a very powerful card that you can search with Dynamite, but after you search that True King's Return, what else is Dynamite really like? What else is really breaking the card? I've never heard anybody play True Dracos and say like True King's Apocalypse is like an amazing card. Like, it's just a card you kind of run because you don't really have any other like traps in the deck to use. So I feel like Dynamite Knuckle at 1 would be perfectly fair. I feel like Dynamite Knuckle and Ignis Heat should kind of be at the same number, and I feel like that would be a pretty good way of hitting True Dracos. Like, you're taking away the extremely absurd broken card Masterpiece, you're giving them just a little bit of power back, and then you're kind of overlooking cards like Dragonic Diagram and a Mono Awado, which cards that some people out there might want banned, but they're really not broken cards. And honestly, another thing that I think that a lot of people are actually looking over is the fact that while True Dracos are good and they did win a YCS like within a month, but I think that a lot of people are not realizing the Brandish Maidens are literally coming out in like 3 weeks. That deck is fucking real, and I've actually seen the matchup. It happened in my tournament last Saturday in the finals, and I really thought True Draco was just going to steamroll Brandish. I was like, oh, you put Masterpiece on the field, it's GG no re. Oh my goodness, Brandish completely ran circles around True Draco 2-0, and there are so many things that about this matchup that I didn't see. Number one, Darkest Diablos is a card that you can run easily in Brandish because Ray actually triggers it every single time, and it's kind of an auto win against True Draco. They can't target it in any way. So it's essentially Borreload Dragon, as it has 3,000 attack. They can't even blow it up with True King's Return like they can Borreload. If they don't have Diagram on the field, they basically auto-lose to a card that you can drop at any time. And then there are also just Kaijus, and I feel like people don't realize that there is this really, really big evil coming out in like 3 weeks. I don't think that they'll power creep, True Dracos. I think True Dracos would still be a solid deck, but before we try and make True Dracos completely unplayable just because a lot of people are sick of it right now, I think you got to kind of look at the bigger picture. And even beyond that, I still think True Dracos deserve to be treated fairly. When you're tier 0, like Spiral and Zodiac, I feel like you lose your right to be treated fairly. If people after, Spirals were taking 29 spots out of the top 32, if people were like, ban the entire deck, I'd be like, yo, that's fine. And that's obviously because Spiral and Zodiac were taking an unhealthy amount of the meta and there wasn't much diversity. You either played those decks or you played a deck pretty much trying to counter them 100% if you wanted to have any chance of actually beating those decks. But I don't know, I feel like True Draco are getting a raw deal by a lot of the community right now. I feel like people would be completely fine with hitting like 5-6 cards in the deck, and it's like, for what, man? Just hit a couple of cards in the deck, ban Masterpiece, ban Card of Demise, maybe bring back Dynamite Knuckle, leave everything else alone. And then you got to look at the big picture. In 3 weeks we've got the Brandish Maiden coming out, and I kind of feel like that deck, Sky Strikers, is actually going to be more powerful than True Dracos. But you guys let me know, maybe if you do have that kind of irrational hate for True Dracos, which that's perfectly fine, just explain it in the comment section below. I don't know, maybe it's actually because of the floodgates and the fact that it's like the only deck that can run all of these arbitrary floodgates and have basically like not be disrupted by it at all. Maybe that's the element that I'm actually missing. But you guys let me know, what is the fair way to actually hit True Draco in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already. Turn on that notification bell for daily videos.